Some families were celebrating today when Missouri Governor Jay Nixon signed House Bill 2238, which will allow children with seizures to have access to a special kind of medical marijuana. A few of those families say the medical marijuana changed their child's life, but to get it, they had to leave St. Louis and head for the mountains. Denver, Colorado is called the Mile High City. But for Frank and Jamie Bruno, it's 850 miles from home.
I grew up in St. Louis.
The Brunos moved here last October. They say to save their daughter's life. Grace was diagnosed with a form of epilepsy when she was just 5 months old. She's been suffering through as many as 300 seizures a day.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, there's nothing worse than seeing your perfect little baby have seizures.
Every seizure caused trauma to her brain and stunted her development. A hospital room became as familiar as the family living room.
Well, from there, it was just a series of different medications that we tried.
Nothing worked.
Nothing worked.
Then, after doing months of research, the Bruno family learned about a strain of marijuana that has been helping other kids with intractable seizures. It's called Charlotte's Web, which has very high levels of cannabidiol, or CBD, and very low levels of THC, the psychoactive ingredient found in recreational marijuana. So a child taking this is not going to get high?
No, you would have to take a really, really extraordinary dose to feel much in the way of psychotropic effect.
In here, by next spring, be able to produce 500,000 plants.
Jesse Stanley and his brothers created Charlotte's Web on their medical marijuana farm in Colorado Springs, and they're about to open a new lab in Boulder. Their Realm of Caring nonprofit foundation provides cannabis oil to children, but by law, to get it, you have to be a resident of Colorado.
I was kind of like, that's really extreme. I was like, I don't want to leave my family and my support system.
But St. Louisans Matt and Jenny Jesse felt they were out of options for their 2-year-old daughter, June.
Oh, there you go.
So they, too, decided to move to Colorado after doctors wanted to retry one of the 14 medications they had already prescribed.
We just decided that instead of trying something that we've already tried and failed, we were going to try something new.
Over the last 16 months, more than 200 families have moved here to Colorado, looking for the hope they haven't been able to find anywhere else.
Grace gets about this much.
As an oil extract, each dose comes in liquid form, which Grace swallows 3 times a day. The Brunos now call it a marijuana miracle.
And that's it. We haven't seen a seizure in 24 days. It's the longest we've ever gone. We've never even been 1 day.
There you go, Ladybug.
As for June, the Jessies assert she's gone from 40 to 50 seizures a day.
There you go. Hello.
To just 5. And they've only been on the oil for 2 months.
I want people to know that this has changed June's life.
Of course, not every family has the ability to move halfway across the country.
This is the one you like.
And for those who do, there is no going back. Not for Thanksgiving or even Christmas.
We can't cross state lines with her medication, or we're considered criminals.
But for right now, the journey for these families is not about what they've lost, but what they've found. Hundreds of miles from St. Louis, home is quite simply hope.
You see them in pain, you'll do anything to help them.
Now that CBD oil is legal in Missouri, you would think that those families can return home for the holidays. But by federal law, marijuana is still a Schedule I drug, the same as heroin. And transporting the medicine across state lines is still a question. And it will be at least a year before the infrastructure is in place to produce the oil in Missouri. In Illinois, similar CBD legislation is just waiting for Governor Quinn's signature. So what do doctors say about this treatment and its long-term effects? That part of the story tomorrow night at 10. Ann? It's both scary and disturbing when a child suffers from epileptic seizures, and a parent often feels helpless. That's why they would do whatever it takes to try and stop their children from suffering. As we told you last night, some St. Louis families have packed up and moved to Colorado for a special type of medical marijuana that in many cases seems to lessen those seizures. That same type of treatment will soon be available in Missouri, thanks to a rare bipartisan effort in Jefferson City, persuaded by a local lawmaker's heartfelt personal story. For Eric Schmidt, there's no better time than family time.
Are you going to come over here too?
Moments spent with his wife Jamie and his daughters Sophia and Olivia. But he admits his son Stephen gets most of the attention.
He's a very special kid, and we're very, very thankful that Stephen's in our lives. Hey, buddy.
At 9 years old, Stephen is still a kid, but he's faced more challenges than most adults.
And I often wonder what he would say to me. You know, is he scared?
It was last May when Schmidt, a Republican state senator from Glendale, stood before his colleagues in Jefferson City to tell them about Stephen and his struggles with intractable epilepsy.
And I pray every night when I'm holding him that something will make a difference.
Schmidt was speaking in support of House Bill 2238, which would allow a special extract from a marijuana plant to be legal for use on patients like Stephen who have suffered brain trauma from constant seizures.
We never thought we'd have our child on cannabis.
Jamie and Frank Bruno say the extract has been nothing short of miraculous.
Yay!
For their 5-year-old daughter, Grace, who is having as many as 300 seizures a day.
And that's it. We haven't seen a seizure in 24 days. It's the longest we've ever gone. We've never even been one day.
But the Brunos had to move from St. Louis to Colorado to legally get the extract, which is an oil called CBD. The oil is extracted from the type of marijuana plant that is bred to have very low levels of THC, the ingredient that gets people high.
We were shocked. I mean, it's just crazy, the changes we've seen.
I think there's a really strong message there. It says that already there's a group of patients that seem to get a good response.
Dr. Stephen Rothman, a neurologist at Mercy Children's Hospital, is excited about the anecdotal evidence of CBD, but says more scientific research is needed.
There's a long history in medicine of people anecdotally advocating certain kinds of treatments, having those widely disseminated, and then when they're finally tested, they're proven to be ineffective.
And the truth is, Eric Schmidt doesn't know if CBD oil will work for Stephen. What he does know, he says, is that families like theirs shouldn't have to move to Colorado to find out.
I mean, there are people moving their whole families to another state to access this, and they ought to be able to access that in their home state where they have their own support network.
It's just a first step on a long journey that the Schmidts hope is finally moving in the right direction.
I'm just thankful that we were able to pass the legislation.
Many doctors agree with Dr. Rothman that more needs to be known about CBD oil and if it has any long-term effects. But for families who feel they have no other options, it represents hope. Senator Schmidt believes it will take about a year before all the safeguards are in place for families to actually get the CBD oil from seeds grown here in Missouri.